This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, March 17th, 2025, St. Patrick's Day. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Trump deports hundreds of Venezuelan gang members to El Salvador, despite a judge temporarily putting a halt to the deportation. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Iran is again denying that it's helping Houthi rebels in Yemen target international commercial shipping in the Red Sea. I'm Donna Warder.
Violent tornadoes, along with high winds, took out homes and other buildings across the central and southern U.S.
We got her out the window.
I'm Julie Walker.
New York police investigating after a man was set on fire in Times Square.
Some of America's favorite drinks are in the crosshairs of the latest tariff battles, and the companies that make those drinks are pleading for some relief. I'm Peter Schacknow.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says a South African ambassador is no longer welcome in the U.S. I'm Clayton Neville.
All ahead on America in the Morning. President Trump authorizes the mass deportation of what his administration says are hundreds of Venezuelan gang members under an 18th century wartime law, despite a judge's order not to do so. From Washington, here's our John Stolnis.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced on X Saturday the administration had sent over 250 members of Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang, to El Salvador, where President Nayib Bukele agreed to house them in that country's state-of-the-art and controversial prison system for $6 million. Video shared by Bukele shows hundreds of men in white T-shirts, shorts, and sneakers being taken off American planes, led to prison, and sitting on the ground, hands cuffed behind their backs. Trump did so under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, used only 3 other times in American history, during the War of 1812 and World Wars I and II. Republican Senator Mike Rounds on Fox News said the president is using every tool at his disposal to keep Americans safe.
They never should have been allowed into our country in the first place. It's our responsibility to protect our families, to keep our streets clean and safe. And that's exactly what the president said he was going to do, and that's what you're seeing being executed right now. We will follow the law.
However, Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett tells CNN State of the Union the use of this particular authority was unnecessary and ignores due process.
It is the fact that we can't trust this administration to actually use a scalpel, but instead they love to use a butcher knife on things. And so giving them this wide latitude to just kind of go across and just claim that anybody is anything is wrong.
The last time the Alien Enemies Act was used was when the U.S. put Japanese-American civilians in internment camps during World War II. The transfers came as a U.S. district judge issued an order Saturday that temporarily blocked the deportations. However, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the judge's order, which, quote, had no lawful basis, was issued after the terrorist TDA aliens had already been removed, end quote. Critics say the Trump administration has not provided any evidence that those deported were in fact members of Tren de Aragua. John Stolnis, Washington.
Iran denying helping Houthi rebels after the U.S. launched a destructive wave of airstrikes on Yemen. Correspondent Donna Warder reports the U.S. military campaign also included a warning from President Trump that all Houthi attacks on shipping in the area must stop, in a message also directed at the Iranian leadership.
Iran is again denying that it's helping Houthi rebels in Yemen target international commercial shipping in the Red Sea. The U.S. launched a wave of airstrikes against them, and President Donald Trump warned that Tehran would be held fully accountable for its actions.
This was an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. And the difference here is, one, going after the Houthi leadership, and 2, holding Iran responsible.
On ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz says the U.S. took out multiple Houthi leaders.
All options are always on the table with the president, but Iran needs to hear him loud and clear. It is completely unacceptable, and it will be stopped. the level of support that they've been providing the Houthis.
The Houthi-run health ministry says the airstrikes killed at least 31 people, including women and children, and wounded more than 100. The Houthis have repeatedly attacked international commercial shipping in the Red Sea and launched missiles and drones at Israel in what the Houthis call acts of solidarity with the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
We will hold not only the Houthis accountable, but we're going to hold Iran, their backers, accountable as well. And if that means they're targeting ships that they have put in to help, their Iranian trainers, IRGC and others, that intelligence, other things that they have put in to help the Houthis attack the global economy, those targets will be on the table too.
I'm Donna Warder.
Spring arrives this week, and severe weather with it. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues with an update on a storm we've been tracking. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy with details.
An extremely impactful storm that moved across the U.S. starting last week and continued eastward through the weekend with widespread severe weather from the plains into the southeast and then continuing through many eastern states on Sunday, but especially from West Virginia northward to New York. The remains of this system will still be providing moderate to heavy rain along the coast for a time from coastal North Carolina northward through southeast New York and into New England. Rain could still be heavy enough in parts of southern New England to cause localized flooding. And then behind this storm, there will be some lingering rain and snow showers in parts of the Appalachians from West Virginia into Pennsylvania. And the rest of the central and eastern U.S. is going to be largely quiet. There is a weak storm moving through Canada that could provide a little snow through northern North Dakota into Minnesota. But most places in the plains will have plenty of sunshine and temperatures well above the historical average, with 50s and 60s through South Dakota into southern Minnesota, quickly warming to the 70s and 80s into Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri, and then southward to Texas, where there could even be a few 90-degree readings. The southeast, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic will also have sunshine, but temperatures will be a little bit closer to average for mid-March. The west, another powerful storm, will be providing rain and thunderstorms in California, some of which could produce damaging winds and small hail through the central parts of the state. There will also be a significant snow in the Sierra Nevada, with more than 2 feet falling today and tonight. That's the weather across America. Jackson, Mississippi will have plenty of sunshine today and a comfortable afternoon with a high of 70. Fresno, California will have plenty of clouds and some showers and a heavier thunderstorm with a high of 59. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A weekend of violent weather across the United States, from the southwest and southeast to the Ohio Valley, that included dust storms, tornadoes, and high winds that also wreaked havoc in the Midwest, tipping over trucks, decimating homes, and leaving more than 36 people dead. Correspondent Julie Walker files this follow-up.
Violent tornadoes, along with high winds, took out homes and other buildings across the central and southern U.S.
It's very heartbreaking. I mean, I've got people dead everywhere, people injured, a lot of people without houses. So, I mean, I'm a paramedic, I'm a firefighter, I'm a coroner, and it's hitting me on all sides.
In Wayne County, Missouri, Dakota Henderson helped save people.
He was trapped in that bedroom, that only room standing left of this house. She was trapped in it. We got her out the window, got her up to the Earth home that's up the road. And we were helping other people. We found a few bodies that was out in the field, a few deceased people. And there was a guy that was probably about a quarter mile back behind us through all these trees and debris.
The weather pattern also causing deadly dust storms and icy weather.
Friday, there were 37 tornado reports. Those are just reports. Those aren't actual. That doesn't mean 37 tornadoes. That just means 37 reports. There could be multiple reports along the same tornado. And then actually yesterday, yesterday I just got in, there's 36 reports from yesterday.
National Weather Service meteorologist Cody Snell says it continues moving across the country.
The main threat is damaging winds, but there is the potential for a spin up of a tornado or two.
Warnings and watches are in effect as the storm moves to the eastern seaboard. I'm Julie Walker.
From New York City, horror in Times Square as a man was set on fire. Police believe a flammable substance was first thrown on the man. Officers patrolling Times Square around 4 a.m. saw the man on fire and doused the flames. Police are actively investigating and looking at surveillance video of the area, but no suspect has been named. It was last December, you'll recall, a 57-year-old woman sleeping on a subway train in Brooklyn was set on fire and killed. An undocumented migrant was soon arrested and charged with that murder. Liquor tariffs. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. In for CNBC's Jessica Ettinger, here's Peter Schacknow.
The ongoing battle over tariffs might be enough to drive one to drink, except that might be too expensive. Diageo, the world's largest spirits maker, says the threatened 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico could cost it $200 million in the second half of this year. It's asking the administration to consider new rules which would offer tariff relief when ingredients are sourced inside the U.S. or any country with which the U.S. has a trade agreement. Chris Swanger, president and CEO of the Distilled Spirits Council, says any solution would be of great benefit.
Our heads have been on a swivel over the last couple of weeks. We recognize the broader issues that President Trump is trying to grapple, but we also need him to cut a deal because this industry and American jobs and American economic vitality will only thrive when we have fair and reciprocal trade, and that includes 0 for 0 tariffs.
Also worried about potential impact, coffee sellers. The National Coffee Association has asked the White House to exempt coffee from any tariffs, saying recently implemented tariffs could increase prices up to 50%. Concerns about tariffs and the economy getting the brunt of the blame for the latest slump in consumer sentiment. The University of Michigan's mid-March Consumer Sentiment Index fell to 57.9, the lowest reading since November of 2022. All those worries have had a recent impact on the stock market, although Friday's strong rally, the best in 4 months, served to shake off a good chunk of this past week's losses. Jim Paulson, chief investment strategist at Luthold Group, isn't surprised at the recent volatility.
What we're starting to see is economic momentum is lessening, and as a result, recession fears spike, and that runs right through the stock market. I don't think we're going to have a recession, but I think we're going to have a recession scare, and that's going to be enough here to keep bringing a little turmoil for a period.
As for the week ahead, the Fed will hold its regular policy meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday. Former Dallas Fed President Rob Kaplan does not expect any move on interest rates.
If you pull back from extraordinarily high fiscal spending, that should be disinflationary, and that should give room for the Fed to cut. The fog in all this is that we've got other things going on. I think the Fed won't do anything in the March meeting. They'll kick the can to at least May, but it wouldn't surprise me if before we get to the end of the year, the Fed can take some action.
We'll see if that slump in consumer sentiment hurt retail sales. The government releases February figures at 8:30 Eastern Time. At 10 Eastern, we'll get a fresh read on the housing market with the latest reading on home builder sentiment from the National Association of Home Builders. And a nearly 3-week celebration is underway to mark the 10th anniversary of the popular web series Hot Ones, which no doubt has done its part to kick up sales of hot sauces.
Very good. CNBC's Peter Schacknow. Harsh retribution imposed by Marco Rubio when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. South Carolina has set the date for what will be their 5th execution of a death row inmate in 7 months. Following the case, correspondent Lisa Adams Wagner.
A man who shot and killed an off-duty police officer is scheduled to become the 5th person executed in South Carolina since the state resumed the death penalty in September. The state Supreme Court on Friday announced an April 11th execution date for 41-year-old Michael Mahdi. Mahdi can choose between lethal injection, electrocution, or a firing squad. The firing squad was the method chosen by Brad Sigmund, who on March 7th became the first prisoner executed by bullets in the U.S. in 15 years. If Mahdi doesn't choose by March 28th, he'll be sent to the electric chair. Also Friday, the court postponed a potential 6th execution, that of Stephen Bixby. Bixby killed 2 police officers in a land dispute in 2003. The court said before Bixby can be executed, a judge needs to determine if he is mentally competent. I'm Lisa Adams Wagner.
The world is reacting to Secretary of State Marco Rubio's accusations surrounding the U.S. ambassador to South Africa. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
On social media last week, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that South African Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool is a race-baiting politician who hates America and hates President Trump. Rubio added that the ambassador is no longer welcome in the United States. The post was in response to recent comments made by Rasool, who claimed Trump's Make America Great Again movement was a white supremacist response to demographic changes in the U.S. Dr. Kingsley Macabela is the director of Risk Recon and spoke with SABC News on the topic.
You can't do that as an ambassador. It means he really making himself irrelevant.
Earlier this year, Trump issued an executive order penalizing South Africa over the law that allows the government to make land seizures without compensation. Political experts say it was then that the relationship between the two countries started to sour. I'm Clayton Neville.
America in the Morning for Monday, March 17th, 2025. St. Patrick's Day is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, President Trump and Vladimir Putin expected to discuss Ukraine this week.
President Trump has made a triumphant visit to the Justice Department, Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Some Democrats sparring after President Trump signs a resolution to keep the government open. I'm Clayton Neville.
Great to see our friends arrive.
The 2 stranded American astronauts are heading back home. I'm Bob Brown. That story next.
Passport confiscated of a person of interest in the case of a missing American student in the Caribbean.
The GOP town hall in North Carolina got rowdy. I'm Ed Donahue.
It was a slow weekend at the box office. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Spring arrives this week. Welcome back to America in the Morning. Here's the Monday forecast from AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
In the west, another powerful storm will be providing some showers and thunderstorms in California, some of which will produce damaging winds and small hail through the central parts of the state. There will also be a significant snow through the Sierra Nevada with more than 2 feet of snowfall today into tonight. We'll have additional showers also developing through Oregon and Washington up through the coast, and rain and snow a little bit eastward into Nevada and Idaho and Montana, as well as northern Utah into western Wyoming. Showers will also develop a little farther south into southern California later this afternoon. This system will eventually produce another round of snow and powerful winds later this week in the southern and central plains. The rest of the Four Corners states today will have dry weather with some sunshine, though clouds will also build in Arizona later today as that western storm moves closer. And then we're looking at an impactful storm winding up in the eastern coast states with some rain along the coast from North Carolina northward to southeast New York and then continuing into New England. Some of that rain could be heavy enough in parts of southern New England to cause localized flooding. And then behind this system, there will be some lingering rain and snow showers in parts of the Appalachians into West Virginia, into Pennsylvania. And then the rest of the central and eastern U.S. will be largely quiet. We have a weak storm moving through Canada that could cause a little bit of snow through northern North Dakota into Minnesota, but most places will have plenty of sunshine and temperatures well above the historical average with 50s and 60s through South Dakota and southern Minnesota, warming quickly into the 70s, 80s in parts of Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri, and then southward into Texas. There will be plenty of 80s and even a few 90-degree readings. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Don't forget you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube, Amazon, Spotify, Apple. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of prolonging the war and ignoring U.S.-led efforts to agree to a ceasefire as the first step toward ending Moscow's 3-year-old invasion of its neighbor. Following calls by President Trump and Secretary of State Rubio to get Kyiv and the Kremlin to the peace table, Britain's Prime Minister says it's time for Russia to come to sign up to a ceasefire with Ukraine. Correspondent Donna Warder reports this comes after fierce fighting and long-range missile strikes continue from both sides. President Trump, who says this war must stop, is expected to speak with Putin tomorrow.
You don't want to pick on somebody that's a lot larger than you, even with the money. There's a lot of money that we gave them and a lot of equipment. We make the best military equipment in the world, but even with all of that, it's unbelievable. Right now you have a lot of Ukrainian soldiers that are encircled and in grave danger, and I've asked them not to kill those soldiers, please, not to kill those soldiers. We don't want them killed.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is urging Russian President Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine.
If Putin is serious about peace, it's very simple. He has to stop his barbaric attacks on Ukraine and agree to a ceasefire. And the world is watching.
Starmer held a virtual meeting with allies and said the Kremlin's dithering and delay over President Donald Trump's ceasefire proposal and its continued barbaric attacks on Ukraine run entirely counter to the peace Putin says he wants.
My feeling is that sooner or later he's going to have to come to the table and engage in serious discussion. We can't sit back and simply wait for that to happen. We have to keep pushing ahead, pushing forward and preparing for peace, and a peace that will be secure and that will last.
I'm Donna Warder.
America in the Morning continues. President Trump visited the Department of Justice, where he decried what he describes as the weaponization of law enforcement. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports the president also went after believed political enemies.
President Trump has made a triumphant visit to the Justice Department, giving a political speech with a familiar list of grievances. The president blasted what he calls the Biden Justice Department's unfair and illegal targeting of him and vowed to expel rogue actors.
We will expel the rogue actors and corrupt forces from our government. We will expose and very much expose their egregious crimes and severe misconduct, of which was levels you've never seen anything like it. It's going to be legendary. It's going to also be legendary for the people that are able to seek it out and bring justice. We will restore the scales of justice in America, and we will ensure that such abuses never happen again in our country.
He spoke for more than an hour in the first Justice Department visit by a president in a decade, showing his interest in exerting influence over a department that prosecuted him while pledging to restore the scales of justice.
As we begin a proud new chapter in the chronicles of American justice, this really is something. We're turning the page on 4 long years of corruption, weaponization, and surrender to violent criminals, and we're restoring fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law.
In a wide-ranging speech, the president blasted media criticism.
It just cannot be legal. I don't believe it's legal.
And wrapped up by saying he'd been invited to speak and himself had questioned if it was appropriate.
I said, is it appropriate that I do it? And then I realized it's not only appropriate, I think it's really important, and I may never do it again.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Pushback on Capitol Hill against Democrat leadership in the Senate by members of their own party after President Trump signed a continuing resolution that keeps federal agencies open through September and avoids a partial government shutdown. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Senator Chuck Schumer has spoken out against the resolution that ultimately passed and was signed by President Trump, but he supported it late last week when it was time to vote.
I believe that allowing Donald Trump to take even more power via a government shutdown is a far worse option.
10 Democratic senators voted with Republicans to bring the spending bill to a vote, but other Democrats accusing Schumer of waving the white flag, and the group Indivisible now calling on the senator to step down as minority leader. Ohio Democratic Congressman Greg Landsman was on Fox News Live and blasted the measure that passed 54-46.
What this does is accelerate these chaotic tariffs that have rocked the stock market, that made put us in a recession.
Democratic Senator Chris Murphy appeared on NBC's Meet the Press.
Well, I totally understand my colleagues who didn't want to catapult us into a shutdown. I actually think that the American people would have understood that Republicans have an obligation to negotiate with Democrats.
The resolution cuts back on non-defense spending by about $13 billion compared to last year and boosts defense spending by $6 billion. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was asked by reporters if it's time for a change in leadership in the Senate.
Next question.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Success in space, GOP town hall melee, those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Authorities in the Dominican Republic are beginning to focus on the man who was last seen with missing University of Pittsburgh pre-med student Sudiksha Kananki. The New York Post is reporting that Joshua Reeby, a senior at St. Cloud State University in Minnesota, who was last seen with Kananki, is now considered a person of interest and have seized his passport, not allowing him to leave the Caribbean nation. Reeby has, as of yet, not been accused of any wrongdoing or charged. Kananki went missing 11 days ago, and a massive under and over search of the waters near the resort where she was staying has yielded no signs of her. Hundreds of law enforcement from the Dominican Republic, the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office from her hometown in Virginia are involved in the investigation. A spectacular and amazing moment in space as the crew aboard SpaceX arrives at the International Space Station to bring home 2 astronauts who've been stranded since their mission began last June. Correspondent Bob Brown has the story.
1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 and Crew 10.
Nearly 30 hours after launching from NASA's Kennedy Space Center Friday night, the 4 astronauts from the United States, Russia, and Japan arriving at the International Space Station to bring home Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, who've been stranded for 9 months after their spacecraft malfunctioned. Mission control on the moment they arrived.
Onishi, the first Crew 10 astronaut through the hatch, followed by Peskov. Nicole Ayers, the first of the Fly's newest class of astronauts to enter. And last, commander of Crew 10, Anne McLean.
Returning for a couple of people, very first time for a couple of people. And let me tell you, that is such an amazing journey. You can hardly even put it into words.
Suni Williams thanking everyone.
And Houston, thank you for tuning in this early morning. It was a wonderful day. Great to see our friends arrive. So thank you so much.
Williams and Wilmore are expected to depart from the International Space Station Wednesday morning to begin their journey back home. The 4 SpaceX astronauts are expected to remain at the space station for 4 months. I'm Bob Brown.
Nita Lowey, a New York Democrat who spent 16 terms in the House of Representatives and rose to become the first female chair of the House Appropriations Committee, has passed away from complications of breast cancer. Lowey's tenure in the House included sponsoring over 500 pieces of legislation, with more than 400 becoming law. Lowey, whose district covered parts of 2 New York City boroughs as well as Westchester County, was 87. A North Carolina Republican congressman defied the House Speaker's warning about holding town hall meetings, and it descended into chaos. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
The GOP town hall in North Carolina got rowdy.
I sense maybe a faction in this room of folks that
that might not have voted for President Trump.
Republican Congressman Chuck Edwards was the target of jeers, expletives, and searing questions on Trump administration policies.
Like him or not, Elon Musk has brought a lot of really smart people to Davos. I happen to believe very much that President Trump supports our Constitution.
The exchanges got heated. The man yelling there, Jay Carey, got kicked out. He spoke to the AP before the meeting.
Stand up, protect the people that you're elected to stand up and protect. Our elected officials in this red district aren't doing it. They need to go.
Edwards' take on the night?
We're doing exactly what the American people sent us to Washington, D.C. to do.
Asheville is still recovering from devastating Hurricane Helene. I'm Ed Donahue.
Major layoffs underway at the government-funded Voice of America. Just a day after more than 3,300 employees were put on leave, staff working on a contractual basis, which is the majority of VOA workers, received an email notifying them they were being terminated at the end of the month. The sweeping cuts also froze Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, formed in the Cold War to reach the former Soviet bloc, Radio Free Asia, established to provide reporting to China, North Korea, and other Asian countries with heavily restricted media, and Arabic language Radio Farda, targeting Iran and other Islamic nations. Shifting gears, the Medusa ransomware attack has been threatening computers and companies for about 2 years, but according to the feds, it's gaining steam. Here's Chuck Palm with today's Tech Report.
A threat known as Medusa ransomware as a service has been launching ransomware attacks since 2021 and has recently affected hundreds of people, but has the potential to reach thousands, if not tens of thousands, of companies as well. The cyber attack focuses on unpatched software and short passwords, and the CISA is recommending using multi-factor authentication for services such as your email and VPNs. Medusa encrypts a victim's data and threatens to publicly release exfiltrated data if the ransom is not paid. And for good measure, it shows a data leak site with a countdown to the release date of your information. What makes this cyber attack so pernicious is that it implements measures such as deleting volume shadow copies and removing startup recovery options and local backups. Bitcoin trading around 82,000 and Ethereum at 1,872. For more tech news, find me at chuckpalm.com.
College basketball is heating up with sports. Here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
The 68-team field for this year's NCAA men's basketball tournament was announced on Sunday. Auburn was named the overall #1 seed and will play in the South region. The other three top seeds won their conference tournaments over the weekend. Florida taking the SEC final over Tennessee on Sunday and heading up the West region. ACC champs Duke are tops in the East and Big 12 winner Houston #1 in the Midwest. The eyebrow raisers from Selection Sunday, the Tigers and the Gators, will be joined by a dozen other SEC schools, 14 in all, blowing away the old record of 11 Big East schools that made the 2011 tournament. And this year's field includes North Carolina and Texas, normally familiar faces, but coming off rough seasons. The Tar Heels 22-13 this year, the Longhorns 19-15. The 68-team women's brackets were also revealed. UCLA is the 1-1 for the first time in school history, with South Carolina, USC, and Texas the other regional top seeds. NBA, the Magic made the Cavaliers' 16-game winning streak disappear with a 108-103 upset. Thunder rolled over the Bucks 121-105 for their 10th win in the last 11 games. NFL, the Bengals have agreed on 4-year contract extensions with receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Chase getting $161 million, giving him the largest average annual value of any non-quarterback in NFL history. Higgins will make do with $115 million. And Mookie Betts will not play in the Tokyo series between the Dodgers and the Cubs starting tomorrow as he recovers from an illness that caused him to lose nearly 15 pounds in the last week. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, river water turns green. That and more after these messages. Thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. There were plenty of new movies in theaters, but the box office had one of the slowest weekends in quite some time. Kevin Carr has a check.
It was a photo finish at the box office for one of the slowest movie weekends of the year.
You're gonna love this.
In first place with $8.7 million was Novocaine.
You should see the other guy.
This comedy action film about a man who can't feel pain trying to save the woman of his dreams from bank robbers was one of the few movies in the modern age to hit #1 with less than $10 million.
Once you die, we'll print a new version of your body.
Yeah, I should have read through it.
In second place with just over $7.5 million was Mickey 17. Unlike Novocaine, which cost only $18 million, this high-concept sci-fi comedy is unlikely to make back its $100 million plus budget.
Thousands of innocent people will die.
Okay, 1 week. Who's the suspect?
Your wife.
In a whisper-thin third place with $7.5 million was Black Bag. Steven Soderbergh's spy thriller is going to struggle to finish its theatrical run in the black.
Wait for it.
In fourth place was Captain America: Brave New World with $5.8 million.
You may be Captain America, but you're not Steve Rogers.
Though the highest-grossing film in the top 10, it's on the low end of the Marvel films, unlikely to crack $400 million worldwide.
There's no way we could screw this up.
And rounding out the top 5 with $3.2 million was The Day the Earth Blew Up. This Looney Tunes feature film was dumped from Warner Brothers a couple years ago during restructuring and was given a new life in theaters by an independent distributor. I'm Kevin Carr.
An annual tradition that's endured for over 60 years. The nation's third largest city dyeing the Chicago River green for St. Patrick's Day. Julie Walker reports on the thousands who came out over the weekend in Chicago to prepare for the St. Patrick's Day celebrations.
Cheers along the Chicago River as it turns emerald green in honor of St. Patrick's Day. Visitor Lisa Homestead.
It's bright green. It's really green, like our shirt. Yeah.
An incredible sight to see. The Plumbers Union adds the non-toxic dye to the river by boat. Resident Angel Torres says it's his first time seeing it live.
It was a good, fun experience. A lot of people, good vibes. Everybody was just there having a good time, laughing and then cheering on when they were coming dying. And it was just an overall pleasant experience to be in. And it just gives a good vibe of Chicago.
The river dyeing ushers in Chicago's St. Patrick's Day Parade, along with a host of other events leading up to the official day Monday. I'm Julie Walker.
The tradition of turning the Chicago River green was started by members of the Journeyman Local Plumbers Union 1962 when they sprayed dye into the water from boats days before St. Patrick's Day. The dye is non-toxic, and while it was bright green for most of Saturday, it will take days for the green color to fade. Let's hope good luck does not. America in the Morning for St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2025, is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.